For the final video for this module, I'm going to take you through the process of creating a build, or a standalone version of what is being currently created in the Unity editor. So in order to do this, I will come up to File, Build Settings. I can select which platform I want the build to be created for. In this case, I'm selecting PC, Windows. If you're on a Mac, it's the same thing, but then you just make sure it's set to Mac. I can define it as a development build, or I can keep it as a regular build. I want to make sure that I have the scenes that I'm going to be using. In this case, there's just one scene, so I will select Add Open Scene to make sure that that's there. And I can change my player settings if I need to. So if I click on player settings, you'll notice it shows up here in the inspector. In this case, I'm not worrying about it too much because this is just a test. But then I can go to Build. Once I select Build, I want to place it somewhere. The one place I do not want it is under my assets in the game project. The reason for it is that if I put it under the assets, it's creating a lot of different scripts and other things as part of the build that will end up causing my project to crash. So usually when I have students bring up the most issues, it's where they were doing a build and then suddenly everything stopped working. Well, it's because they did their build into the assets folder. So if you want to keep it in the same project, that's fine, but you need to create a new folder within the project, and I can call this builds. Or in a lot of cases, I will actually do the builds separate from the project and somewhere on my desktop or under my, somewhere else in my system. But once again, do not do a build under the assets. So with builds, I will open up that folder and I will call this 3D modeling build. And I will select save. And so it takes a second and runs through this whole thing. And so depending on how much you have, how many scenes you have, scripts, things like that, the speed at which it accomplishes the build will change. In this case, it should be fairly quick because I don't have a lot in here. So you see it's putting everything together right now. I'm still going to pause it. Oh, I won't even need to. Thought I might need to pause it. So now I have this standalone build. And so if I check under the project, there's builds. It's not enough just to have the application. I'll have people that will send me their application to look at. It has to be all of the information that was just created under this builds folder. So if you do need to send a build to somebody to let them try out your game or your project, you want to zip this. So right click and do something like, where is it? Send to compress zipped folder. And in that way, you have a single file that goes to everybody, but it needs to contain everything in here. So you have the exe file, but then you also have all the data information. If you're doing a build for a Mac, then it will be just a single file that you can send. But if I double click on the build, I can tell it what to do. In this case, I just want it to be the full screen resolution, 1920 by 1080. I don't necessarily want it windowed. You may want to do it windowed. If you do, it's going to reduce the size just because we don't currently have a way to get out of it other than hitting the Windows key and then manually shutting down the program. But I'm fine with that just to show you. But I'll hit play. And so there's Unity's logo. And now I have a standalone build. And because of the first-person controller, it also has sound. But I can walk through, and this is now a standalone game. So I will hit escape. Or excuse me, the window key, and close that. But now it's a standalone application that can be created. So with the end of this module, what you've learned to do so far is take your assets that you've created and put them into Unity, arrange them into a scene, put in on some collisions, use the prefab first-person controller, and create a standalone product. So you now have the ability that on your own, if you want to continue to explore modeling and texturing, you can create environments, you can create scenes, put them into Unity, and actually walk around them in a game engine. So that's where this module is going to end. In the final module, we're going to come back and we're going to go through implementing animations as well as looking at lights and cameras a little bit.